So at this point, I've got my wheels, my gear assemblies made, and I'm going to put my wheels, all three of them, onto the bottom of my robot base. To do that, I'm going to have my 4 screw eyes, and I have this little plastic tube. I'm going to take a pair of scissors and cut it in half. And I'm also going to need the awl for this, or if you had a nail or something, just to punch little holes in the wood with. That'll help. When I put on the wheels on the back, I have a couple choices about where I can put them, but I have one problem. The axles are too wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them off-center a little bit, or offset them a little bit, about a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch. And I can put them so they hang on the back, or I can put them kind of up a little bit. I'm going to put them up a little bit on the wood, and then give them a little bit of distance. So to make sure they go on straight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 2 lines on here. The wheels are about 3 inches in diameter, so I'm going to put the first wheel about 2 inches from the back, or the first axle about 2 inches from the back. So I'll take my ruler and I'll measure 2 inches, or about 4.5 centimeters, and then I'll mark over here about 2 inches. And then the next mark I'm going to make it about 2.5 inches, 2.5, and 2.5. Now when I draw my lines, one will be for one axle going to one side, and the other will line up the other axle going to the other side. So now my axles will fit right here on the bottom of my car. Now I've got to figure out where to put the screw eyes. So I'm going to put one of these little screw eyes, and this is where it doesn't have to be too scientific, about a 1/4 inch away from the edge. And the other one, I'll put my wheel axle up here. I'm going to put as far away as I can, so I'm going to put it about a 1/4 inch from the end of the wheel. And on the other side, over here, I'm also going to put it about a 1/4 inch away from the end of the wheel. Now the next step, on the lines, I'm going to punch this in with a nail, or in this case I've got a little scratch awl. And this will give me a little hole, kind of a starter hole, where the screw eyes are going to go in. So there's one. Here's the third one, and the fourth one. Now I'll put the screw eyes in. So I'm going to take these little screw eyes, and I'm going to push them down and turn them. Unfortunately, you really can't see what's happening, but I'm pushing and turning. So they go in kind of like a screw, but by hand. If it's hard to turn, you can take the awl and stick it in here a little bit, and you can actually turn it. It'll give you a little bit of leverage. You don't want to put them all the way in. You want them to be up from the bottom a little bit. Because what's going to happen is this piece of plastic is going to go over the axle. It's going to go screw eye, plastic piece, and then screw eye. And you want to make sure this little piece of plastic doesn't touch the piece of wood. And I'll show you that in just a moment. At this point, I've got one of the wheels already mounted, and I've got the 4 screw eyes put in. Here's how it works. I take that little plastic tube that I had and I cut it with a pair of scissors. And then I take the axle, stick it in there, the tube goes over top of it, it goes through the plastic tube, and then from there it's going to go right in the other screw eye. Now at this point I'm setting it up on top of my little base that I had made. That way I'm not pushing the wheels down on anything, they're just suspended in the air, and everything's being pushed down on the base here and not down on the wheels. There's no pressure on the wheels. This is going to be important. One of the things that can happen is if you start building it without this base and you start pressing on the wheels, it'll pop out the screw eyes, in which case you got to move everything. It's possible to rebuild the robot upside down or on the other side if you really mess up everything, but this way I'm trying to keep my screws tight. Now right now I've got too much play going back and forth, so I'm going to slide my little plastic tube a little bit to one side, so now it holds it in place. Plastic tube on the other side, I'm going to slide it so now it doesn't go back and forth, so that'll hold it in place. Now for the front wheel, again, it's important you build it on the base at this point, because if I do the front wheel and if I have it on the table and I start screwing the front down and I start pushing down here, it's going to push it around here as well, and that'll pull the screw eyes loose and they'll pop up. So you want to make sure at this point you're always building on top of this little base that we gave you. So I'm going to put my little base over here, I'm going to mount it here, and I'm going to put it in the middle. Now you can measure it, you can kind of eyeball it depending upon how good your skills are. But what I'm going to do is just put it right there. Seems to be pretty much in the middle for this one. And I know my screws are going to go right in these little dots that I'm putting. Your caster may look a little different than this, but this one will work. And now I'm going to do the same process with the yaw. I'm going to punch my 4 little holes in here. And these are going to be starting holes for the screws, so the screws go where I want them to go. And if you don't have a little sharp point at all, you could use a little nail. Now what I can do is I can take this, and I'll take my screws, and I'll push them in here to hold it in place. You don't need all 4 screws in place. You could just do 2 or 3 if you had to, if you were missing a screw or something happened to one of them. The 4 gives it a nice, rigid, sturdy holding mechanism.